They say curiosity killed the cat, but in my quiet little neighborhood, it almost destroyed Karen's so-called untouchable reputation. Picture this: the sky barely lighting up, a steaming mug of coffee in hand, and your morning peace shattered by a scene that makes you question everything you thought you knew about your neighbors. There she was, my HOA president, striding down the driveway in a lavender bathrobe, slippers scraping softly against the pavement, rifling through my mailbox as if she owned it. That was the moment my ordinary suburban mornings took a turn into the surreal, and ultimately into a federal sting operation that would land her in handcuffs. But before we go any further, I'm curious, which corner of the world are you watching this from? It all began at 5:30 a.m., though the events that led there had been quietly brewing for weeks. I had noticed odd patterns in my mail: bills arriving days late, invitations never showing up, and even official notices from the IRS that seemed to vanish into thin air. At first, I chalked it up to poor postal service, a busy schedule, or my own forgetfulness. But the gaps were too consistent, too deliberate to ignore. Something, or someone, was interfering. One crisp morning, fueled by caffeine and a mix of irritation and curiosity, I stationed myself by the window. The sun was just beginning to stretch its fingers across the horizon, and everything in the neighborhood was bathed in a soft, golden glow. That's when I saw it, a shadow moving purposefully along the driveway. At first, I assumed it was a prankster or an early morning jogger. But the silhouette soon resolved into something far more unsettling: Karen. Lavender bathrobe cinched at the waist, hair tousled as if she had just rolled out of bed, she approached my mailbox with deliberate calm. She opened it, rifled through its contents, and casually pocketed letters. I nearly spat out my coffee in shock. This was the same Karen who spent hours at HOA meetings lecturing about rules, integrity, and community standards. The woman who handed out violation notices like Halloween candy had been caught red-handed in my driveway, committing a federal crime in broad daylight. I wanted to run out and confront her, to scream, to demand an explanation, but experience, and a healthy sense of self-preservation, told me that wouldn't end well. If she was brazen enough to steal mail in plain view, she'd likely react with anger, denial, or both. More importantly, if she had done this to me, how many other neighbors had been quietly targeted before? The very next day, during an HOA meeting, I casually brought up the issue of the missing mail. Karen responded with a practiced smile, tilting her head so that her pearl earrings swung gently, and chuckled. "Oh, you know how unreliable the post office can be," she said, dismissing my concerns in front of everyone. But there was a subtlety in her laughter, a sharp edge that hinted she was laughing at me, not the postal system. It became clear, this wasn't merely a petty HOA conflict anymore. Tampering with mail is a serious federal offense, punishable under 18 U.S.C. 1708. Fines, imprisonment. Karen was stepping into dangerous territory. I realized that confronting her directly would only lead to yelling matches, neighborhood gossip, and more pointless HOA drama. I needed something more substantial, undeniable proof and legal authority that couldn't be swayed by charm or threats. That's when I contacted the United States Postal Inspection Service, an agency most people forget exists, despite being the oldest federal law enforcement body in the country. Their job: protect the mail, and they take it seriously. After explaining the situation, they listened intently and asked detailed questions. Then Inspector Lopez spoke. "Sir, if your account is accurate, this is a violation of Title 18, Section 1708. Mail theft can carry up to 5 years in prison. If you cooperate, we can set up a controlled operation to catch her." I didn't hesitate. The plan was elegant in its simplicity: a decoy envelope embedded with a small GPS tracker, disguised as a normal piece of mail. The moment Karen touched it, the inspectors would know. The following morning, I placed the bait in my mailbox and waited, nerves taut as piano wires. Across the street, a nondescript sedan with tinted windows sat silently, inspectors inside monitoring. As dawn broke, I spotted the lavender bathrobe again. Karen walked with deliberate poise, making her way to my mailbox like she had done countless times before. She opened it, slipped the decoy letter into her pocket, and sauntered off as if nothing had happened. Almost immediately, Inspector Lopez's radio crackled. "Trackers moving. Subject heading northbound." The inspectors tailed her carefully. Karen had no idea. She thought she was untouchable, the queen of her HOA kingdom. But she was walking straight into a federal trap. What she didn't realize was that by taking that envelope, she had stolen government property. That made this no longer a neighborhood dispute, it was federal jurisdiction. By the time she reached her house, local police had been coordinated into the operation. The GPS showed her stepping inside with the stolen envelope. Lopez glanced at me, calm and professional. Once she opens it, that's federal evidence. Watch closely. Minutes later, the tracker confirmed tampering. Green light. The inspectors moved in. Lights flashing, officers approached her porch. Karen stepped out, clutching the envelope like a prize. The smug confidence that had defined her demeanor crumbled when Lopez, badge in hand, stated, "Ma'am, you are under arrest for theft of United States mail, a violation of 18 U.S.C. 1708. Place your hands where I can see them." Her face transformed from confidence to sheer disbelief. "This must be a mistake. I'm the HOA president," she sputtered. Authority, however, doesn't cover theft. The scene drew neighbors out of their homes, phones raised, capturing every moment. Karen, once the unchallenged ruler of our cul-de-sac, was now being handcuffed in broad daylight, her empire collapsing before the very eyes of those she had controlled. I'll never forget the expression on her face as Lopez read her rights. Disbelief, shock, the dawning realization that for years she had manipulated, intimidated, and stolen with impunity, but this time, the law had her cornered. She was transported to the local station, and within weeks, federal indictments followed. Multiple counts of mail theft, felonies that carried serious prison time. The HOA board, desperate to salvage their credibility, voted her out unanimously. The once dreaded lavender bathrobe figure became a cautionary tale whispered through the neighborhood. Some neighbors chuckled at the fall of the once powerful queen, others shook their heads at the audacity. Either way, Karen no longer commanded fear or respect, only infamy. As for me, the stolen letters no longer mattered. What mattered was justice, real, undeniable justice. A reminder that beneath HOA rules, below petty squabbles, federal law exists, and it does not suffer those who tamper with it. Because when someone thinks they can claim ownership over another's mailbox, they're not just committing HOA infractions, they're challenging the federal government. And when that happens, the game changes entirely. From that day forward, our neighborhood had a new understanding. Power may come in titles and rules, but authority only truly exists when it aligns with law. Karen learned this the hard way, and our mornings returned to their peaceful routine. Except now, whenever someone mentions the HOA, there's a subtle, knowing smile. A silent acknowledgement of the lavender bathrobe that once ruled the street, and the federal sting that ended her reign.